Welcome ladies and gents, Chris Andre here. Let's talk boxing. You know, rather than go down the traditional route of a technical breakdown where I microanalyze the strengths and weaknesses of each guy, talk about how one guy can excel against another in these specific situations, and this is how each person needs to set up those situations, and who do I think is going to be able to do that, and then we come up with a prediction at the end. There's no point in going down that route. Why? Because Tyson Fury against a guy who's never put on a pair of boxing gloves should be such a hot favorite here that he should be using his head as a basketball. He should be bouncing it all over that ring like a Harlem Globetrotter trying to show off in front of his girlfriend. So there's no point in wasting time there. Instead, I'm going to approach this in a different way. Let's pretend Francis Ngannou walked into my office and he said, "Chris Andre, I've been watching your videos since day one. I was captivated by your unrivaled intellect, boyish charm, and great modesty. And then I got hooked on the technical breakdowns, and I need you to help me beat Tyson Fury." I'm not going to say, "Francis, what are you chatting about? You got no chance. Just run along." No, we're not going to do that. I'm going to make a nice little cup of coffee, one of those Chris Andre specials with a cardamom and a saffron powder and a little bit of a rose syrup in there as well. He's going to love it. Then we're going to sit down and we're going to come up with a technical breakdown, a game plan as to how he maximizes his chances of winning. Maybe he's only got a 2% chance of winning, right? If they were to fight 50 times, maybe on one occasion he lands a big shot and he takes Tyson Fury out. Well, our aim would be to say, how can we double your chances? We'll take you to 4%. 1 in every 25. The chance of you winning is still low, but this is how you maximize your opportunities. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to talk about the making of a miracle. What does he need to do in order to better Tyson Fury? Well, first and foremost, you have a lot of people that are saying an MMA fighter has no business in the ring. He's going to get obliterated. MMA fighters can't even compete against the likes of Jake Paul and people like that. Well, let me explain to you why that's a little bit different first and foremost. When it comes to the likes of Ben Askren or whoever else that he's fought, they're either not strikers at all, or they're very limited strikers and have been way past their best. They're significantly smaller men. They've aged. They're not as athletically gifted. You're not really going to compare that. The one time you had a top MMA fighter transition over to boxing, it was when Floyd Mayweather fought Conor McGregor. Now, a lot of people feel as though Floyd was carrying Conor. To be honest with you, that's not strictly true. I understand the narrative, right? Boxing versus MMA, all the beef about what's superior. I get how that came about. But the truth is, Floyd had to make an adjustment in that fight to win. You see, when it comes to an MMA fighter, there's no inside game for them. Why? Because in the UFC or in mixed martial arts in general, you don't have the opportunity to be shoulder to shoulder, forehead to forehead and start banging away at the body. Instead, what happens is that you start to get clinched, or you're going to get into a lock, or someone's going to shoot for your legs to take you to the floor. So you're not there long enough. And so they don't develop that aspect of their game. What they are very good at though is distance control, because they have to be careful of leg kicks as well as punches. And so they can shift in and out very, very quickly. And early on, Floyd Mayweather came up against a Conor McGregor who's taller, had reach as well, perhaps a longer reach than Floyd, and was able to maintain distance very well. And what Floyd did is come in behind a high guard, force his way into the pocket, start to put incessant foot pressure on Conor, bang the body, wear him down and take him out late. But early in that fight, he was actually being made to fall short and he was being walked onto uppercuts quite consistently. That is not conducive with carrying a guy. No one's going to be getting punched in the face with a two-piece combination consistently on purpose. He was being made to fall short, caught with an uppercut followed by a right hook. The right hook would sometimes land, sometimes not. But the uppercut, as Floyd overreached with that right hand, was a pretty consistent weapon for Conor McGregor. So there are areas where you can have some success. The problem is, Conor does not have a one-punch knockout power, unlike a heavyweight like Francis Ngannou. In other words, if Francis is capable of setting up certain situations where he can land consistently on Fury, he does have the power whereby maybe one particular exchange could lead to Fury getting toppled. Remember, we're not talking about probability here. The probability is that Tyson Fury dominates in every range. But we've got to talk about the maximum opportunities for a victory. Now, if you look at historical context in boxing, there is actually a historical context to show that if you're smart about how you approach it, even if you're significantly lesser than your opponent, you can still cause him some major issues. And this comes about because of the fact that a lot of boxers will tend to train with drills and they fight to patterns. So for instance, you're taught This is how you throw the perfect jab. This is how you throw the perfect hook. This is how you throw the perfect right hand. Now, there are variations within that. People jab in different ways. They hook in different ways. They throw the backhand in different ways. But it's still within what is considered an acceptable remit of delivery by and large, at least when you're trained, when you're taught. And if you deviate from that, you're considered to have bad technique. Now, the reason technique exists is because ultimately it's been tried and tested. It will get you to your final destination if you've got great technique, potentially, right? Sometimes there's just too big of a gap, athletically speaking. But by and large, if you were to find two people exactly the same athletically in terms of their abilities, when it comes to the guy who's better trained in an orthodox technique, a good, solid technique, he's probably going to have the upper hand. However, in the short term, when you bring chaos, you disrupt patterns, and that can mess up the order of things for a period of time. How often do you end up seeing these really hot prospects and they'll be up against a journeyman type of guy and he's expected to look great and get him out of there, but he's been clipped a little bit too often, he couldn't break him down, and afterwards you see the commentators, the promoter, the fighter himself, the trainer justify it by saying, well, he was a little bit awkward, a very difficult style to look good against, had to get to grips with him, and listen, we got the W, that's the most important thing, it's a good learning fight. What does that even mean? Why is he awkward? Because he's unorthodox and you're not used to seeing those patterns, you're not as effective. Consider, for example, the great Joe Louis. Let's go way back. He fought a dude called Tony Galento, 2-ton Tony Galento. This dude was a little barrel-chested, a big gut. We're not talking about Andy Ruiz here, who was fat as well, aesthetically speaking, but you're talking about a guy with really fast hands and athletically very gifted. With Tony Galento, this was a beer-swiggling, chain-smoking dude. He had no business being in the ring against a guy like Joe Louis. This is the bum of the month club, right? Well, Tony Galento gave Joe Louis all he could handle for 4 rounds. He dropped Joe Louis. He landed numerous big shots on Joe Louis. Why? Because his style was so unorthodox, so aggressive, that the patterns that Joe would be used to seeing weren't there initially. So by the time he reads what's happening and he reacts to it to then capitalize, you start to see success. The same thing happens when you look at other examples. Ricardo Mayorga versus Shane Mosley, for instance. Mayorga brought chaos, punches from all different sorts of angles, rocking Sugar Shane. Now, many people had Mayorga ahead at the time of the stoppage, which came literally in the final few seconds of the fight. Of the 3 judges that were watching the fight, Tony Krebs had it 107-102, so he had it comfortably to Mosley at the time of the stoppage. But Pat Russell had it 105-104 to Ricardo Mayorga, whilst Nelson Vasquez had it 105-104 to Shane Mosley. Remember, we're in the final round here, going into the final round. So you're talking about a fight that was competitive. It would have been either a split decision or majority decision. It was close. So why did it take so long for the superior technical fighter to get to grips with the chaos? Because the chaos throws you off your patterns. If you're going to go and play Novak Djokovic in a tennis match, let's say you personally can handle a racket, you're a decent little tennis player, you got no chance, whether it's on grass, whether it's on clay, whether it's on hard court. But what happens if it's on ice and you're both wearing ice skates? Eventually he'll get to grips with the ice if he knows how to skate in a basic way, and you're still going to get banged up, right? But you might take that first set. By the time he gets used to ice skating and playing tennis at the same time, you've taken him off his usual pattern. And that's what needs to be learned by Francis Ngannou. Now, if you look at the Mosley fight, if you look at the Joe Louis fight, in the 4th round, he got to terms with him and he took him out. Mosley took him out in that final round. There is a finite period. When Maidana fought Mayweather, that's another example there. Maidana was able to cause Floyd a lot of problems early on. And eventually he started to be able to stabilize Maidana. Someone that couldn't stabilize Maidana was Adrian Broner. So the point is, by causing chaos and throwing them off their pattern, of what they're used to be able to doing, you can create a scenario, a situation, which maximizes your chances. Now, what I don't like is when I've looked at Francis Ngannou on the pads, he seems to be working an awful lot on holding the center of the ring, throwing some straight shots, slipping shots, rolling with shots on occasion. In addition to that, there seems to be a neglecting of a workable reset or a proper exit point. A lot of trainers will actually do this with their fighters, and I don't like it at all. They'll be working on certain situations with certain combinations to work in drills. And what they tend to do is when you finish that combination, the trainer will take a couple of steps back. The fighter's just standing there, just waiting. Maybe he'll shift his feet unnaturally and then set up again. In a real fight, you're not going to be able to get away with that. And that sets up a bad habit because you're not working on your exit point. In addition to not working on your exit point, you're also drilling it into your mind that after you throw a combination, you're going to get a micro break. You don't want that. You want the fighter to be constantly thinking and be focused. I've thrown my combination, cool. Now I'm going to jab my way out. I'm going to change the level. I'm going to pivot out. I'm going to get defensively responsible. Then we'll go again with the exact same combination. Work that combination over and over and over and over again, but work the exit point as well. Francis Ngannou hasn't been doing that, from what I can see, what they've put out to the public. But the other thing, he seems to be standing stationary with the trainer doing most of the movement. This is a problem potentially if this is genuinely how they've been training. Because Tyson Fury, one thing he's not going to do is stand at mid-range against Ngannou and just put his chin in the air and say, come on then, you throw combinations, I throw combinations. Fury's going to do one of two things. He's either going to be feinting a lot and moving a lot, and Ngannou will have to bypass his length, get in close and work without getting smothered. Fury's got this fantastic ability to land punches as he's moving back, and if you do pin him up on the ropes, he doesn't make his final exit move until you're about to punch. So he'll move back onto the ropes, towards the ropes, his back will touch the ropes, and just as you're about to throw a punch, he'll throw his arms out like they're an obstacle that you need to get through, obstacles between you and the target you need to hit, and then he leans back just as you're about to throw. Canelo Alvarez does this very well as well, by the way, when he's got his back on the ropes. And so you're then having to make up even more ground to reach him. This is something Dillian Whyte really struggled with. The other thing is that he will bump you, he'll literally come into you, he'll throw a jab, and if it misses, he'll get you in a headlock. He'll go past your shoulder, and then he'll flip his arm over to get you in a headlock and again hold you and break your construct. He's brilliant at doing things like that. He's very awkward. He's very clever at nullifying what you've got to offer. They're the areas that he needs to work on if he's on the front foot. How to set up his shots without overreaching against a target who, as he goes back, is then going to further extend his exit. The other thing that Fury might do is get behind a big long jab and be very aggressive in the way he was against Deontay Wilder in the second fight. And he'll be able to push Ngannou back and get him on his heels. He might say, Francis Ngannou is not particularly fast. He's not agile. He's not athletic. He's very strong and he carries a lot of power, but he's quite top heavy and slow. If we can affect his balance by putting him on the back foot, he's not going to be able to launch these big attacks against me. So I might go and push him on the back foot. So the other area that Ngannou needs to work on is being able to change the direction of exiting off at an angle and then coming back in quickly. That way, if Tyson Fury is following him, he's able to take half steps to the side and then come back in. In other words, you've got to be able to turn being hunted to hunting very, very quickly in an instant. And finally, because Fury is so good at being able to affect your construct and your balance and lean on you and use his mass, this is an area where Ngannou should actually be good. He should work on things like framing, being in a position whereby if Fury's going to come in, you've got to know how to create separation, to release an arm so that you're not constantly falling into a clinch, and work on the inside, explode and bang that body and catch him with short shots. These are the three areas that he needs to be considering. In other words, it's all about distance for Francis Ngannou. These things of him trying to roll with shots and come back with counters, what are you doing? You're not going to learn that in a short period of time. Now, it's very possible, because he has looked terrible on the pads, that this is just him playing possum. We might actually see that he turns up and he's really ready to go. You want to be methodical. You want to walk in behind a high jab, a high guard, force your way in. You're not going to outbox Tyson Fury. Turn this into a 2, 3, 4 round fight. Before he reads your patterns, the way Joe Louis read Galento's patterns, the way Floyd read Maidana's patterns, the way Floyd eventually read Conor McGregor's patterns, the way Ricardo Mayorga's patterns were read by Sugar Shane Mosley. Before that, just like all those guys, go and cause him problems early on. And because you are a heavyweight with heavy hands, unlike those guys, you might actually be able to land something significant enough whereby if he makes an error and you catch him, he might not get the second chance to adjust. Think about that. Now, how do I think the fight will go? If Tyson Fury takes it seriously, I think he should get him out of there by the middle rounds. But that's neither here nor there. We've made the case for the miracle. Let's see what happens there with Francis Ngannou. Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm hoping to bring you guys more videos talking about the undercard. I'm going to talk about Adelaide and Wardley's fight. I'm going to talk about Bakoli as well, Makhmudov. We'll discuss it all hopefully over the next couple of days. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.